We are initiating a clinical diagnostic test of your everyday social behaviors. Think about the daily friction you experience with others, the coworker who talks over you, the friend who plays the victim, the relative who refuses any nuance. We usually write these patterns off as permanent character defects. We assume the person across from us is acting with intentional rudeness. But this assumption of rudeness is often a misdiagnosis. When you look closely at the cognitive mechanics, these behaviors are visible symptoms of a human brain running out of processing power. By learning to read these specific behavioral markers, you stop reacting to annoying interactions with frustration. Instead, you become a clinical observer of human cognitive limits. Let's begin phase 1 of the diagnostic, data ingestion. The primary symptom of a failure at this stage is chronic, constant interrupting. This illustrates a resource called cognitive patience. To listen, you process incoming speech while holding internal thoughts in reserve on a second parallel track. A low-capacity system lacks the RAM to sustain both. The brain is forced to physically eject its internal thought, overwriting the incoming data. Reflect on your own conversational habits. An interruption is a biological overflow error. It is a sign the brain cannot handle the ingestion of new data. If the data is successfully ingested, we enter phase 2, data processing. Taking in complex information and adapting to it on the fly consumes high levels of metabolic energy. Here we find the symptom of the repetitive narrative. You will notice certain individuals default to the exact same rehearsed stories and conversational scripts, regardless of the context. Dynamically steering a conversation into new territory requires processing fluidity. An overwhelmed brain lacks that agility, forcing it to stay on a predictable, pre-written track to conserve energy. This leads to a paired symptom, binary thinking. Look at this gradient scale, representing the complexity to hold nuanced truths at once. Evaluating gray areas drains processing power. To save energy, the brain takes a shortcut. It deletes the gray spectrum, forcing concepts into rigid, binary categories. Stubbornness is rarely a sign of strong conviction. It is a cognitive defense mechanism against computational exhaustion. This brings us to the final diagnostic phase, threat response. This activates when the cognitive system is completely overwhelmed by ambiguous input. This is the personalization trap. It occurs when a brain encounters a neutral question or nuanced social data and fails to decipher the context. Ambiguity is expensive to resolve. To a brain running on a deficit, unresolved data is a risk. Rather than investing energy into curiosity or confusion, the brain uses a survival shortcut, flagging the unknown input as a direct personal attack. The immediate psychological reaction is defensive externalization. The system instantly shifts blame onto someone else. True self-reflection carries a high metabolic cost. To prevent a total psychological crash, the brain shatters the reflection, offloading that burden onto an external target. Playing the victim and rapid-fire blaming are indicators of a system prioritizing immediate biological survival over accurate social processing. Exiting this clinical framework and returning to daily life allows you to view interactions through a different lens. This diagnostic perspective offers an alternative to typical social frustration. Instead of viewing a conflict as a battle of wills, you begin to see it as a limitation of the other person's processing capacity. But you must also point this mirror inward. When you are sleep-deprived, when you are highly stressed or emotionally compromised, your own processing capacity drops. The next time you catch yourself interrupting or reflexively externalizing blame, recognize the mechanical reality. You are experiencing a system failure. You have to monitor your own cognitive patience. Intelligence is measured in the friction of social interaction.